Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Border Season 2. So, Border Season 2 came out early this April, around the 14th or 17th on Tubi in America. See, this is a British comedy drama. And it comes on like British television, but here in America, it comes on Tubi for free. That's amazing. I reviewed the first season last year and I really enjoyed the first season. Like the first season was just like awesome, you know what I'm saying? It had like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, certified fresh. It got renewed for like a second season, and a couple of the outlets were like talking about this show. And one of the cool things about this show is that it revolves around five black kids in Britain that have to go to a very predominantly white, like private school where a bunch of rich kids go to and stuff. And the reason why they go there is because a couple of the students that went to that school, they urinated on a homeless man. And so because of that, many people in the city felt like, these kids are like, so this is the thing I never understood. They peed on a guy who's not even black. And so it outraged the people in the city. So they're like, okay, we need to show that there's more diversity, blah, 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 in the school. So they brought in these underprivileged five black kids who come from some of them just literally just don't have no money. They come from a poor family background. I never understood that. They peed on a homeless man. What do like five poor black kids have to do with that? But anyways, I like the idea of like this cultural experience and everything. You got these five black kids that come from family who don't have much money, and they normally hang out with nothing but black people, and now they're thrust into very high society private school with nothing but white folks and stuff. And so it's a cultural experience, and I like that dynamic. I like how they had to adjust their lifestyle. I like how the white kids had to try to understand them and not be prejudiced and stuff like that, you know. It reminds me of Ackley Bridge, another British show that deals with white and Pakistani kids and stuff. Now that show is amazing. It's mostly like a drama, like a very emotional drama, right? And so I thought this was like a really awesome thing to where you have this predominantly show that's pretty much predominantly white, but the leads of the show are black. And the white characters are the supporting characters. I love that idea. I thought that was really, really neat. And like a step forward and um, showing that black people can lead um different genres, you know what I'm saying? Like take Sinners that just came out. I haven't seen that yet. And it shows that hey, black people can still do hard just as good as white people, and black people can lead a movie and stuff like that. And it's kind of how I think about this show. And so, they hit on a lot of the modern day tropes, like how the white people perceive black people, how they try to fit in, how they try not to offend them, like how do black people fit in with white people, interracial dating and everything. And they even had a girl who's biracial, white and black, who does not accept her black side and mostly accepts her white side, and her dad is the head mister at the school. And of course, he looks down on the black students that are there, even though his daughter is half black. So it was a lot of cultural things that could have came off very cringy like most modern Hollywood does lately, but it came off very well in the first season. It was a really poignant and excellent way of showing wokeness and everything, and the creator was black. And I forget why he said he created the show. I don't know if there was like personal experiences or what. I don't remember. And so I was thrilled for this show, but I don't know if many Americans actually watched it. Then coming into the second season, I'm all like, wow, where are they gonna go from now? Because so much happened in the first season. They had that big party. The headmister got like in trouble and stuff like that. They tried to get the main character, is it Joaquin or Hakeem? Joaquin. They try to get him to sell out like, his fellow like black students and try to like assimilate him into their society. Be like, hey, we'll make you head boy and this and that and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? To where he started to kind of turn on like, his friends that he came with. And then there's the character of Remy, who pretty much abandoned them just to hang out with the trio, a group of really rich, like white dudes who like to party and drink all the time. And then you had Leah, who's like, this advocate for like black culture, and she would not stand for this racist like picture mural that was like in the school that depict a white guy who's pretty racist and does like stuff in the past to like black people and stuff like that. And so, then of course you had like, Omar, like, dealing with his roommate who was one of the people who urinated on a homeless man, and he's really prejudiced and everything. And so, like, and you have Toby who's dating the biracial girl and everything when she's not really used to being around black folks. So you have all this like really cool stuff jiving in like, the first season. And so I was wondering what the second season's gonna do. And the second season strips all of that away. I'm just like, wait, what? And I mean, it just strips it completely away. The very identity the show was created on just seems now to be a typical teen drama, like comedy and everything, which is really weird. Like, why do all that stuff in the first season if you're not gonna piggyback off it on the second? I get it, you gotta evolve. I get it, you have to have character development. But that was the premise of like, the show. I mean, they even had Jakeem be at a park bench and see these two older white people who kind of gave him a weird, dirty look. And he had to make sure his school uniform was present, showing to let them know, hey, I go to this like Ivy League white school, I'm not what you think I am. Because he was taking the advice of what his former teacher at his old school, who is the creator of this show, told him. Hey, look, if you get in a situation where there's some white people and they look uncomfortable, just smile, be polite, say hello, and just try to let them know that, hey, look, man, you're friendly. You're not the perceived big, hulking, dark-skinned black guy who's going to scare them away or something like that. Like, you're not that thuggish kind of guy. And he saw the look on their face, and he literally saw the prejudice, like, emanating from their body and stuff. And all of that is now stripped away. Now, like I said before, it was the black leads and the white characters are the supporting cast. And you know how supporting casts are. They're there to support the main characters. They're not really there to go off and have their own little adventures, this and that. But, the supporting cast is pretty interesting to where I don't mind if they go off and do their own little thing, and be a basic generic teen show. But it's just kind of like, that's not how the show started off. You know what I'm saying? But now it feels like a basic generic teen show. You know what I'm saying? And, I do want to see the supporting cast, have more character development, their own storylines, like, but it's just kind of like, because they deserve it just as much as the other kids, but it's just kind of like, that's not what the show was made to be. But I'm cool either way. It's just, Why rob the show of its identity? And then when they do try to put black social issues in the show, they kind of just wedge it in out of like the clear blue nowhere, and then it starts to feel awkward and everything. It's just kind of like, why is this coming up all of a sudden? Like, why did she say this or why did he say that? Like, it feels awkward, like modern day Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? But technically, British people they don't have their version of Hollywood. I don't know what their version of Hollywood is called, but you know, the entertainment world, I guess you could just say. And so it doesn't flow naturally and everything. So season two is a bit of a step back, not just from stripping away the identity of the show, but one thing that's odd is that it has the same amount of episodes as season one, but the characters really don't do much this season, except for maybe like Joaquin and Remy and everything. This is where like the focus of the show. Now I don't mind it focusing a bit more on Remy because he didn't really have much to do last season. He was mostly off screen, just hanging out with the trio, acting stupid and drunk. But this season focused heavily on Joaquin and everything. And he is the main, like, you know, ensemble cast star and everything. But I'm all to like spread some of that character development and screen time to some of the other, like, you know, characters and everything. And so while he gets character development, the other characters kind of stay exactly where they were last season, but then evolve just slightly a little bit. So they dropped the ball on that because you don't want character to stay stuck exactly where they were last season. But when you do want them to have character development and evolve, you want them to actually evolve. And some of these characters regress and devolved in their thing. And it's just kind of odd because that was like the main cast. Like Leah, I don't know what the heck Leah was doing this season, like at all. And when it comes to that of Omar, he was just kind of like all over the place. And Toby, literally, like, if Toby wasn't in the show this season, it would not have advanced the plot in no way, shape, or form. They gave that dude really nothing to do. And then there are the uh what do I call it, the supporting cast and everything. They're still supporting the main characters, which is good, and they're also giving a little bit their own, like, you know, storylines, which is also good. But it's just kind of like they're stuck in the relationship character arc. And I told you this before when it comes to television shows. If your entire plot for a season revolves around some type of romantic arc from like the main character, that means the writers literally have nothing for you. Like they really don't. And that's how all the female characters are this season. They're just stuck in some like romantic story plot that revolves around the main characters. Then there is that American girl they brought into the show. Once again, take her out, and it doesn't really advance the plot in no way, shape, or form. And so I don't really understand what was the point in introducing her for the Leah character if you wasn't going to give her nothing interesting to do. Then there is the new head mistress, which is like, you know, the mother of like Omar's roommate. I forget his name. And they redeemed his character only to make him bratty, but he had a reason for being bratty. But what he did, I'll get to that a little bit later. And when it comes to the head mistress, you can tell she has it out for the black students, but they don't want to go back to season one with the whole social issues thing. So it's kind of a little scattered. You can tell she has it out for them, but you don't really see her going after them in a big, ferocious kind of way. It's like a very tame kind of way. Now, as for her son, I can't forgive the writers for this. They literally pulled a Mean Girls burn book. I kid you not. The moment I saw this, I'm just like, well, that happened in Mean Girls. That's the burn book right there. So Omar is in that little cult thing, the Raisinets, and they want him to put a bunch of secrets on like their cave wall, right? So he literally just, for one episode, follows his friends around and they just happen to expose their secrets that they've been doing all season. He draws them in the book. Then his boyfriend steals the book because he's pissed. And then his roommate steals the book from his boyfriend. And once he sees that, like, Jakeem cheated, or not cheated, but Jakeem messed around with his girlfriend and everything, he is pissed. So he rips all the pages out, put them on the school bus, and then all the students see him. Some are pissed, some are laughing. The head mistress finds out. I'm not even kidding you, there's even a teacher-student kind of relationship, just like in Mean Girls, but it's one-sided and it's not even really happening and stuff. And it's just like everybody's mad at each other, and I'm just kind of like, how can you rip off Mean Girls? Like, you can't do that, and especially with a book. Like, if you're gonna do it, you have to do something different and not just a book and a bunch of pages that are just tossed in the air and everything, just like Mean Girls. But it didn't have the same impact like Mean Girls and everything. Like, it didn't have the impact of everybody finding out everybody's secrets and wanting to rip each other's heads off. It didn't have the impact of them trying to forgive each other. It didn't have the impact of them being mad at each other, because they do stay mad at each other to the end of the season, because it happens in the episode before. But they eventually all forgive each other. And it's just kind of like, this is another thing that's plaguing the show. It feels very rushed in the storylines where people legit just forgive each other within like a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes and everything. And I do feel like it's weird. Like, it took like a whole year for this show to come out. I don't understand why so many storylines are rushed. And I hate to be negative and everything, because this is really a good show. But the second season just didn't do it for me and stuff. It just, the ball was dropped for some bizarre reason, and I don't know why. It's just dropped on every level I can think of. And and then they will set up something in the show with the characters where you assume this storyline is going to follow this trajectory and everything, but then it does a complete turn, like a U-turn, and does something completely different. And it's just kind of like, why set this up to where my brain is thinking this, and this is going to happen, but then this, that, and that happens, you know what I'm saying? And this, that, and that isn't that interesting and stuff. But then there's another thing they did that made me excited when I found out they was adding a new character, only to really waste this character. Cara Theohode. I am a fan of Cara Theohode. I have reviewed 3 shows she's been in. 2 where she was the main stars. Those are like a comedy monster type thing. One was like a comedy vampire type show, and another one was like a comedy zombie type show. And the other one was where she was a supporting cast in a crime drama. And so, it was serious and stuff. And I'm a fan of hers. Like, if you add her into something and it's a comedy drama, you gotta have her be expressive. You gotta have her yuck it up, because she can be very funny and everything, And sometimes she can be like awkward funny, or just wacky funny, or just selfish funny. Like, she has me bawling. Like, if you ever watch Zombo, like, she will have you cracking up. And when she plays a serious role, she plays it very, like, serious, very stilted, slightly bland, very mellow and everything. And that's what they had her do here. They had her play the serious character. But I wanted her to yuck it up. I wanted her to be funny in the show. And they didn't write her with no funny dialogue. I'm just like, when you put Cara Theohode in a comedy show, you have her yuck it up. You don't have her be serious and everything. And it's like they added her just to write her character off at the end for something she didn't do. Then they put in legend Alan Cumming in the show for one episode and one episode only. And he's briefly in the episode. And like he's just there to kind of look down on Jakeem, like the whole, oh, he's a snooty white guy, and Jakeem's this like, dark black dude and everything. Now, Unknown T was also in this as like a cameo in the last episode. I'm not British, I don't know who they are. When it comes to British music, it's like this. In the 90s and the early 2000s, I would hear somebody singing or rapping on the radio. I don't know what country they're from. I don't even know what they look like because they're on the radio. This is before the internet was like really big and booming, like in the late 90s and early 2000s. And so I wasn't on YouTube in the early 2000s. And so like 15, 20, 18, 20 years later, I'm looking up these people on like YouTube. I'm all like, oh, they're British. I didn't even know that. Or like, they're Australian or something like that. Because when they sing or rap, they sound like Americans and stuff. So I don't know who this Unknown T dude is. So while it's not a bad season, it just feels repetitive. And like it feels repetitive of that of season one. Like, certain things that happen in season one are kind of once again happening in like this season. Things are kind of shifted a little bit differently and explored just slightly more, but not that much and stuff. And I really feel like they dropped the ball with a lot of these characters because it's like, the season one was just so good. And the thing is, it's like, with Ackley Bridge, I really got an understanding of what, British, like Pakistani Muslim people are like versus that of like the white people, how they view each other, their lifestyles, their culture. It was a learning experience for me, being that of a black man in America, you know what I'm saying? And so when I watched season one and, when you watch this show, the one thing you notice about the 5 black, like, students that are going to this school on a scholarship is that they don't have your traditional, like, British sounding voices. They have voices that sound Nigerian, Jamaican, African and stuff, like, and a couple of other, like, countries I probably don't even, like, know of and stuff. Because I don't really know what's over there. Because the thing about black British people, from the British shows and movies I have seen, I've always seen the more like, I guess you would call it like traditional sounding black British person, where they sound like a typical like, white British person. I honestly really didn't even know there are like other types of like black British people living over there and stuff. Like I didn't know there are people from like Nigeria and like Jamaica and like the Caribbean and stuff like that. Like this is stuff that's not told to like Americans, and this is stuff we don't see in British television, in British movies and stuff. I think the closest I've ever came is probably Idris Alba and everything. And so this is like a whole nother like a unit of like of Britain that I know nothing about. So this could have been like a really cool cultural thing for me to like learn about, but I didn't learn nothing. That's the thing. And they do dive deeper in, Jakeem's like, family this season a lot, especially with his little brother, his mom, and his grandmother. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, cool, it's going in like this path. I'm probably gonna get to see like this different area of like Britain I've never seen before, where there's like a lot of black speaking people. Cause like in the first season they did that, where they actually went into like a predominantly black neighborhood, where you hear a lot of these stronger accents from African countries and stuff, and black countries. This season they didn't do that. They didn't dive deep into that like culture and stuff. And so yeah, I feel like once again it's non-existent from like, your typical black British person you'll see like in a movie or a television show. And it really sucks because I do love learning. Like I told you before, you can learn more on a television show than you ever will in like school and everything. Because like when I started like watching Ackley Bridge, I was like, wait, hold up. They're like Indian like, British people and Pakistani in British people and Muslim like, British people. I didn't know because they didn't you don't see that in like a lot of TV shows and movies. Do you see that in James Bond? No. Do you see that in Harry Potter? Not until like the fifth movie and stuff. So like how is somebody like me supposed to like know that? You know what I'm saying? And not to mention to learn that they don't always get along with each other and stuff. It's kind of like that Bend It by Beckham movie. What's that movie called I talked about a couple of months ago, that soccer movie. Bend It Like Beckham. That's it. It could have been a real cultural thing like that, but it really wasn't. You know what I'm saying? So when I see this show this season, like say you never watched season one, and say you don't know nothing about like British people or black British people, and then you hear these strong, like really African sounding like, accents, and you just kind of like, well, where'd they come from? Because, you don't see that from the British stuff that comes over here in America. Like, I don't even know if they show that, like, that side, like on British television or not. Like, I really don't. Now, yes, thanks to streaming, you can watch a lot of British stuff in other countries and stuff, but once again, some of the British stuff that I've seen, I don't hear these accents and stuff. I don't see this, or I do see this shade of black, but I don't hear I don't hear like these accents and everything. So I think I know why, like, the show might feel a little bit differently. The head writer and creator, Daniel Lawrence Taylor, still comes back and writes every episode except for one. But in like the first season, he only wrote three of the episodes. And so like he also replaced two of the writers with two completely different people and brought back one of the recurring writers from that of like last season and stuff. So this could be why it feels a bit like differently. Also, he replaced one of the directors with a new person and brought back the same person from last season. So that does tend to make a show feel a bit differently and stuff. If you have like, say different writers and different directors, it's gonna have a different feel and stuff. Now, it has been renewed for season 3. Even though it says, yeah, it's been confirmed for writing for season 3 is underway. So yeah, it's a good thing they're gonna get a third season. I hope they fix the problems in like, season 2. Because season 2 just did not feel like season 1. So let me get into like the premise of what this season is about. So they got a new head mistress and she's, on a trial basis, which she later does become the permanent one. And she has it out for the 5 black students that are there on a scholarship, and she wants them gone. But because of like budgets and other stuff, she decides, she's just gonna get rid of 2 and drop this giant bombshell on them. So whoever has the best grades gets to stay. Notice she didn't do that to none of the other students and everything who might be there on a scholarship, and none of the other students who just happen to pay their way there. But it's all about money for her. And you think she's going to be prejudiced and everything because of how she acted last season. But not really, because like I said before, they stripped that away. So the 5 black students have to like bust their butts in school. But like always, they are on these side adventures that causes them not to do so good in school. And the side adventures in which they go on, some are kind of interesting and some are just kind of like, what are you doing? And stuff. So let's get into the character bios. So Gus, played by Daniel Lawrence Taylor, the creator and head writer of the show, he comes back, but he doesn't really give like too much good advice this season, and he's mostly just there to help Jakeem out with dealing with Carol, and that's really about it. But he doesn't really give him that good grounded advice that he gave him like last season. Alan Cumming, who plays a character named Alan. So basically, he is the person who works at this fancy place that Jakeem like works at, and he has to like, oh, it's weird because it's kind of like he almost like mansplains how to like handle like people's coats to Jakeem. Like he feels like, either he doesn't know like what to do, like, you know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like, is he doing that only because he's obsessed with jackets, which this character is, or is he doing it because he sees a black kid and he just assumes, oh, he's not going to know what to do, so I need to explain. You take the jacket from somebody, you fold it a certain way, you write the number down, you put it in like the little closet waiting space. And so I assumed he would have a bigger role since he is Jakeem's boss and everything, but he literally only appears in that episode only for like a few minutes. And it's quite a ball being dropped. One, why are you gonna hire somebody this famous to like basically have a cameo in the show? And two, because of the way he acts towards Jakeem and everything, it's kind of like, I wish that would have happened all throughout the season to see how like, Jakeem like reacts to it, and if he's gonna tell this dude off or put him in his place or like whatever. John C. So John C. plays that of what's his name? Jakeem's roommate. Zine. I can't pronounce that. He has a little bit more to do this season, but he's kind of in the same boat he was last season, but slightly more funnier. Like, he still can't get along with Jakeem's like friend from back in the day and everything. His like I forget the dude's name, but he looks thuggish and everything, but he doesn't like, well, I don't know, he does still, but it's for a good cause. But him and, his roommate just don't get along, because last season, like, his roommate assumed that guy stole, like, his laptop and stuff. But anyways, this season, basically, when Jakeem's friend comes back, they have to steal a bunch of food for something. I forget why. It's either for Jakeem's family or some other thing. So they literally steal it from the cafeteria, and so the dude doesn't get caught. He has to spend the night over in their room, and his roommate does not like that, because Jakeem's friend is eating his chips and stuff like that, and his chips are special to him because they came all the way from Malaysia from his family, and he doesn't get to see his family that much because he's studying abroad over in Britain and stuff. So he literally gets so pissed that he's gonna rat Jakeem out and everything, until this one girl is able to like play interference and stuff. And so, when it comes to him, like, Jakeem really doesn't respect his roommate all that much. like he does to a certain level, but he's always disrespecting the dude. Like, because he always brings his friend over that his roommate does not like and does not get along with. And not only that, but like he just forgives him within seconds and just plays video games. And I don't understand the rush nature of like, how everybody's always so forgiving this season. And not only that, but it's funny, they have kind of like this rule. If they bring a girl over, then the roommate has to sleep outside in like the hall. And you'll see both of them swap places throughout this season and stuff. But like one thing they do is they put him in this like algebra, like mathlete type thing competition with Leah. And when he's trying to fill the thing out, she feels he writes too slow. So she literally knees him in the groin and everything so that she can run up there and get the winning point. Somehow this must have turned him on or something, because for the spring like dance thing, he asked her out and everything. And next thing you know, like, because it's weird, because at first she was going to say no, but she just decided to say yes anyway, because she saw her ex from last season. And they don't interact when they're at the dance, so you don't know how it went. But then all of a sudden, the next morning, she's laying in his bed and she kind of wondering, oh crap, what did I do? And everything. So they must have slept together. Because Jakeem is sleeping out in the hall. And it's just kind of one of those things where it's kind of like, when did this happen between those two and everything? Because they literally had to come up with a situation to get him and Leah to hang out and everything. But it's because of the whole mathlete thing. And once again, this is ripped off from Mean Girls. Because in Mean Girls, they had that mathlete competition where, Katie had to like do like, the math stuff. And not only that, but like, because Leah kind of takes that place, and there was an Asian dude on like the mathletes, and then right after mathletes they go to like prom in the movie, and then after the show mathlete thing they go to like a spring dance and everything. And I'm just like, how many references are y'all gonna rip from Mean Girls and stuff? Yelena, she's the Romanian girl who's kind of like a mobster in the show. And she had more to do last season when she had to get her money back from Toby when she lent him some money and he didn't want to pay it on time. And so, it's funny. She's 31 years old. None of these cast members look like high school students. But, some of them kind of do, especially the females. The females look more like high school students, like Yelena does. But everybody else, like the guys, clearly look like they're in their 20s and stuff. But she's 31 playing a teenager. She got that, like, fountain youth, like, appearance and everything. But this season, she really doesn't really do much. It's mostly she plays field hockey. And I'm not really sure what's going on with her character, but it's not as interesting as it was last season. So Carol is a new headmistress, and she is Rupert's mother. And so I wish she could have been more vicious this season, because it's kind of like you can tell she has it out for the black students and everything, but she's not as ferocious as I would like for her to be. Basically, she comes in and tells the 5 black students, 2 of y'all have to leave this semester and only 3 of y'all can stay. And she kind of sabotages, like, all of them to where she's kind of trying to make it to where all of them can kind of fail and kind of not at the same time. Her and Leah have a bit of like, a riff in the very beginning of the first episode, in the first episode only. Very similar to how Leah had it with the former headmaster and everything. And it's just kind of like, so they're repeating that like story trope again and everything. And so when Leah messes up her car, she is frustrated, but she doesn't go around the school trying to figure out like who it is and stuff. When it comes to Remy, she finds out that, he's actually loaded with tons of money, and she wants like his father and uncle to like donate money. The thing about her is that she takes bribes. When she knows a student isn't doing very well, then like she will bribe their parent into giving her money and stuff. And that's how like the trio of Remy friends are able to stay in school, because they never do work and stuff. They just constantly get drunk. And so like this could have been like a big scandal. They could have like blown up in her face and stuff like that. But Remy does use it to his advantage, but kind of not in the way you would think in order to like take her down, take her down. Now, she is very protective of Rupert and doesn't want everybody to know he's basically on sabbatical and stuff. And she doesn't like it when Omar goes to her house, to visit her son. But you think, is it because it's more of a racial thing, or is it more because she's embarrassed by her son? And so it's like she has it out for like the drama teacher, but I'm not sure why exactly she doesn't get along with like the drama teacher. It's kind of one of those things that is like just not explained all that well and stuff. And so she gets really upset at Jakeem when like, he turns down the head boy position and he doesn't show up for that like fundraiser fixture type thing. And so I just wish they could have made her more villainous. Jude. So this is another thing. It's like Yolena's 31, the actress who plays her, right? But then the actress that Cara Theobald, who plays Jude, she's 35. So some of these people, it's like, they're supposed to be like, like parents and like, like teachers, but they're around the same age as like, the students and stuff. So it's kind of hard to like, feel that there's like much of a difference. Like, the dude who plays like Jakeem and the actress who plays his mother this season are only around like 8 years apart, 8, 10, something like that. So anyways, she is the drama teacher, and they gave her residence on the campus in kind of like a house type thing. And so like when Femi, not Remy, but Femi, when Femi goes to like, theater class because his friends are in there, they make him make a fool of himself by acting perverted towards the teacher, which she does not like, and she kicks him out the class and everything. And the boys did for their own amusement, and they just made like, a fool out of Femi, like always and stuff. And so later on, he goes back to the class because Carol makes him go there once she finds out he's loaded. And she wants like, his guardians to like, buck up some money and stuff. Basically, she's a really nice teacher, and she does get Femi back. Like, by having him recite like, a line that makes him look like an idiot in front of everybody. But, he does like theater, and she can see that. Throughout the season, you kind of get this vibe of maybe those two might hook up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a teen drama. There's lots of sex this season, and a whole lot more than last season. You know how I feel about that in teen dramas. I hate it. But like, you just kind of get that vibe. 'Cause that's normally a teen drama trope of like the teacher and the student. But thankfully, it does not happen. But the writers still imply it by having Femi go to her house one night and giving her a hug, only for somebody to see that and expose it in the quote unquote journal burn book type thing. And so because of that, Carol sees the picture and assumes something's going on, so she goes over there to talk to her, right? Well, Femi's over there because his butt-headed trio friends about like, look, man, she invited you to her place to study. That's code for she wants to do you. So they put it in his head and give him a condom, and he goes there trying to kiss her with his shirt all unbuttoned and everything, only for her to completely reject him and everything. But as she opens her door to kick him out, here comes Carol, and Femi has his shirt completely unbuttoned, and it looked like they just got through doing stuff. So of course she's accused of doing him and stuff like that. She professes her innocence, but it doesn't matter because for whatever reason, her and Carol have it out for each other. And she saw some papers that Carol was shredding. I think that has to do with the grades of like some of the students and stuff. And so basically she gets like fired and stuff. And so her and Femi are on bad terms, and I'm pretty sure she might be written out the show. Like, I don't know. Like, they didn't call the police. They didn't do no investigation. It's kind of a rush storyline towards the end with her. And it's just kind of like, is she going to get her job back or not? When Femi blackmails Carol and he says, you know, hey, look, I won't tell nobody you take bribes, but you have to let the 5 of us stay at school. So she agrees, but he didn't say anything about Jude. Rupert's a completely different character this season. They really went out their way to like redeem him for his horrible ways he used to act last season. Basically, he's not really in the first couple of episodes because he's not at school, because he's kind of like on a sabbatical. And every time you see him, he acts like he's on Ritalin. And so his mom doesn't want people to know what's going on with him from like last season. But the only person who really knows is Florence, and of course that of Omar. And so him and Florence, I'm not sure if they're still together or not. They kind of act like they are. He still likes her. She kind of pretends to still like him, but she doesn't want him no more. And now she wants Jakeem and everything. And so like he has Omar bring over his homework, and he does therapy now where he just makes like penises out of clay because he says very therapeutic. I could have sworn last season he was bi or something like that, but I can't remember because it's been since last year since I watched it. And so he helps Omar with like his boyfriend and stuff. And so basically he's a heck of a lot more of a nicer character this season. Even to the point where it's Florence's birthday, he literally pays for everything because he offers to give the girls his credit card, and they take her to like an amusement park and stuff like that. But he can see that something's going on with her. She's acting different, and she's talking to Jakeem a whole lot more. So like when Omar notebook, the burn book type thing with all the secrets in it, gets like stolen, he finds out that it's Omar's boyfriend that stole it, so he finds a way to steal it back. As he's like looking through it and everything, he sees a picture because Omar drew everything he saw, and so he saw a picture of Jakeem and Florence like making out. And so he's furious. So he's the one who ripped out all the pages and put them on the bus for everybody to see. Now he went back to his villainous role, but it's more like as in revenge type thing. And every time he sees Jakeem, he'll like shoulder bump him like really hard in the hallway. And that's basically about it. And you feel bad for him because he made Florence like an actual like gift. He made her a collage of like a lot of the pictures of them together and like a ticket stub from like someplace they went. And she saw it as kind of like, what the heck is this? Like, why are you giving me this ceremonial type thing when you're loaded with tons of money type thing, you know? And she really doesn't want to be with him no more. But it's kind of like Carol is kind of making her still, but kind of making her not. And so that's basically what's going on with Florence. You know what I'm saying? Like, she really doesn't want to be in no relationship no more with Rupert. But, Carol manipulative and everything. And, so she just like does it and stuff. And yeah, last season, at the very last episode, it's shown that she's into Jakeem and stuff, flirting with him and stuff like that. And that's what happens throughout the entire season. Those two are basically just talking to each other, but in a flirty kind of way. The problem is that's Beatrice like ex and everything, right? And so like, and she knows that they're broken up, so she goes in and tries to like get with him, which she does, and they start sleeping with each other. But Beatrice knows something is up, but Florence won't tell. So basically, she gets mad at Jakeem because she thought that he was completely over Beatrix and everything. But when he got drunk and he went to Florence's birthday party, he started talking to Beatrice like he still had feelings for her. And so she's pissed at like him and all this other stuff. And she's trying really, really hard to make Beatrix like forgive her. But the season ends with Beatrix not forgiving her. That's like the only person who doesn't forgive nobody this season. So Beatrix is the girlfriend of like Shaquem from last season, but very quickly in the season they break up, or should I say she breaks up with him. She doesn't like the idea that every time they hang out they just do it and everything, and she's all like she wants to do more than just have sex. She says she wants to know who he is and everything because she keeps telling him, I don't know the first thing about you because you don't tell me nothing. And like, plus he's preoccupied this season with his family stuff. So he's always pushing her to the side. And then he says something that pisses her off. And so she realizes, you know what, I'm just going to break up with you and everything. Now, the only thing she really does know about him is that he comes from like a poor background and stuff, because last season she went to like his old stomping grounds and stuff. And so, I like their relationship from last season because here she is, this like, like posh top like white girl, and he's like a black dude, and most likely they would have never interacted with each other in the past to like date, and so now they're dating, and this could have been a really good learning experience between the two of them. But the writers once again dropped the ball with this relationship, and not only did they drop it, but like when they break up, they still act friendly towards each other, even though she's now like has eyes for another guy and she's dating another guy. And of course, because the school is predominantly white, they hook her up with a white dude. But there's another black guy who's not even part of this group, who goes to that school, who dated Leah last season. Maybe she come in like, what? After having a limp and everything, I kind of like having a limp, so I want another limp. And she could have got herself another black boyfriend, but they gave her a white dude. And so, like, it turns out that she actually doesn't really come from a family of money and stuff. And apparently some of the other kids don't dare either, but it's not really explained that well. And so she has a regular job, just like, any other person. She works at that place that Jakeem worked at, where he had to put away the coats and everything. And not only that, but she's trying to get like a sports scholarship. And so like, this is something that's interesting. And it's kind of like, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of a supporting character, because now we're starting to learn more about her. So like I said before, if they're gonna go this way, if it just being a generic like teen show, then third season they need to go fully into that like generic teen tropes and everything like that, and do more backstory on all these characters. And so with her, like I said before, she helps him out when he screws up with the jackets and he puts like a stain on somebody's jacket, and she helps him out. And it's kind of like, if she doesn't like him no more like that, then why is she still constantly hanging with him and helping him out and like riding on the back of his bike and stuff like that, But anyways, when he did get drunk at that party, he started talking to her like he still has feelings for her, and she still has feelings for him, even though she's dating another guy. But she does get jealous every time she sees Florence and like him talk to each other. And because those two are roommates, she knows that Florence is hooking up with somebody, and she kind of figures it's not Rupert, even though Florence lies to her and stuff. But once she sees the burn book and sees what happened, she is pissed off, furious, and everything. And so she doesn't forgive Florence at all. But then she does kind of forgive Joaquin. But why exactly? Now, the thing about her and the reason why she can forgive one and not the other is because she doesn't care if he hooked up with another girl. It's the fact that he hooked up with her best friend that pisses her off. He broke that sacred rule and everything. And she keeps telling him over and over, like, I don't know you, you don't know me, and that's why we broke up and blah, blah. But then he starts spouting off a bunch of stuff about her. And she's kind of like, how the heck does he know all this about me? And she's like, well, that's just basic stuff. And so it's kind of like I wish they would have had him say this stuff later on, or early on in the season and stuff. But there's a question of, will she be back for the next season or not because of that sports thing? I don't really know what it's about. Maybe it goes to like a different school or something. But her and Abby were doing field hockey and they was all competing for it. And she got it over Abby. Abby is clearly upset. But once again, it's another Rush storyline. Abby. Abby is a character they still to this day don't know what to do with, just like they didn't know in season 1. But in season 1, she had a bit more of a better premise. Basically, she's biracial, black and white, and she assimilates more with that of white people than that of black. She doesn't really hang out with her own race. She just hangs out with just like, half of her own race. She only hangs out with the white half and never the black. And this is because of her father, who's the former head master. Basically, he, married, dated, and had a baby with a black woman, but he secretly looks down on some black people who don't assimilate to that of white culture and stuff. The ones that might be poor, the ones that might be ghetto and stuff. He does not show up this season, but he's mentioned a lot because he was suspended because of the actions of what happened last season, and later he is terminated. And because of this, Abby has resentment towards that of Leah. However, she only has resentment for the first couple of minutes of the first episode, and then she just straight up forgive her after that. Leah is her roommate, but they rarely hang out this season like they did last season. It was Leah who helped her accept her black side, curl her hair, stuff like that. And in the other the second half of the first season, she hung out with Toby. And this was interesting because, she doesn't date like her own race, and he was into her and he later got her. But then something happened. So the entirety of this season, she's basically just chasing after Toby. Toby doesn't want nothing to do with her because she called him a joke last season. Because of the way he acts, the way he dresses, how he doesn't dress like up for certain occasions, stuff like that. And I forget what happens between them last season other than them sleeping together. But like he has proven himself to her and, wanting to be like accepted and stuff like that. Like she has come to terms with, I shouldn't judge people, this and that. But he is holding a grudge this season. And so he just completely like gives her the cold shoulder and ghosts her and everything. So she decides she's going to try to get him back by making him jealous, hanging out with a white guy, showing him like really like sultry pictures of her and her friends at like the last spring like fling type dance type thing of them drinking, smoking, looking sexy, stuff like that. he decides he's gonna get revenge on her by posting those pictures and sending them to Carol. And this was very unexpected of him, and it's kind of like, whoa, why is he being a villain all of a sudden? So the spring dance is called off, she's upset. But then later, her and Yelena, they stage kind of like an underground spring dance thing. But Abby cannot find no location. And so she finds a crappy location only for Toby to be the knight in shining armor and find her a more luxurious type spot and everything. And to reward him, she sleeps with him again. And I'm just kind of like, they literally have her chasing him like she's a puppy or something, instead of giving her her own story arc or capitalizing on what they did last season with her not accepting her black side and everything. Because this season she still hangs around nothing but white people and stuff, and Toby and Leah are only two black people she tries to associate with. She doesn't even try to talk to the other black kids that are there at the school. And so it's kind of like they don't know what to do with her. As for Toby himself, he's still there as the comedic relief and, like, you know, the suave pretty boy type. But they have nothing for him to do this season other than give Abby that of the cold shoulder. And so, like I said before, he basically just gives Abby the cold shoulder and doesn't do much of anything else. He helps Joaquin out by getting him back into town by stealing that of a car off his business, because now he has a job, but you don't really see him at his job. And I didn't even know he really had one. And so you think it's going to be like a Ferris Bueller type thing where, like, you know, they have like a stolen car, they go joyriding, something crazy happens. Nothing. Like nothing happens other than the car stalling right before it gets back to, like, you know, his place of business. And all Joaquin did was just go back to talk to his grandmother and his brother. And that's basically just it. And so his whole revenge thing on, like, Abby was just, like, wrong. Like, all because he saw her hanging out with another guy, he got jealous and sent those pictures to that of the head mistress. And it's like, they literally turned that dude into like a villain and stuff, a jealous villain. Dilton is the boyfriend of Omar, and he's the only person in the show of South Asian descent, you know, like Indian, Muslim, Pakistani, and like he's a really nice character. But like, him and Omar never get to spend really no time together, because at first when they want to get intimate, Omar is very self-conscious because he's never done nothing like that before. And Omar keeps spending all his time either with the Raisinets, Carol, or Rupert. So because of that, Dilton feels very shafted and doesn't understand what is going on. He wanted to get into the Raisinets as well, but got like rejected. And he's realizing that Omar is becoming a different person because of them, and it upsets him that he doesn't get to spend as much time as he wants to with them. And when Omar's book got stolen, he blamed that of Dilton, and Dilton got mad. Turns out he really did steal it. He didn't steal it because he was jealous. He stole it because he saw that the book was turning Omar into somebody that's not a very good person. But then Omar has like the nerve to like break up with him because of that. And, you know, he doesn't realize that his boyfriend was trying to help him because Omar's grades were slipping because of the Raisinets and stuff. And because of like spying on his friends and writing stuff down and all this other stuff, it caused so many people to hate Omar. But of course, his friends eventually forgive him because everybody forgives everybody. So he breaks up with like Dilton. But then Dilton says something that was just completely unfounded, to where you're kind of like, why? Why would you say that? So Omar tells him, look, we can still be friends, but we're not gonna be boyfriend no more. And Dilton's all like, well, can we still like, I'm trying to think of a nice way to say this. Give the other person a hand up. And Omar's like, no. And it's just kind of like, why would they have Dilton say that for? And with a big smile on his face, you just got dumped because you tried to prevent like your boyfriend from getting into major trouble, but got in trouble anyway. And it's because of Rupert's fault. He is still running after Rupert and stuff. And it's just kind of like, how did he turn out to be the bad person in this scenario? Omar is a little bit more different than what he was last season, but still kind of the same. He's still obsessed with the Raisinets, that little cult faction that's in the high school that's hidden underground. And they constantly keep kidnapping him to tell him you have to do this and you have to do that. So basically, you have to draw something like a secret on the wall that has to do with one of the students and stuff. And it has to be a big secret. Problem is, he doesn't have any. And he sees his boyfriend on there getting fluted by two guys and everything. And so, like, he is spending more time with the Raisinets than he is with his schoolwork and that of his boyfriend. Now, when him and his boyfriend get intimate, Omar acts very strange and bizarre. He will freak out, run out, go to the bathroom, and I'm not quite sure what he's doing. It looked like he was cleaning himself off with soap. And I'm thinking, okay, I know he's gay and he came out. Does he secretly not like being gay? Does he not feel comfortable being touched by a guy? Like, what exactly is going on? You know what I'm saying? And it's because he's a virgin and everything. So he is still pandering to that of like, um, Rupert and stuff. And Rupert pretty much has him bring his homework over and they talk and they have a nice conversation. But Rupert takes his cell phone, texts that of Dilton, and pretends to be that of Omar. So those two can finally hook up and it works and everything. And so now he's a little bit more comfortable doing that. However, you think this season was going to be about him not wanting to be touched by his boyfriend because of the inexperience, and somehow he find a way to screw that up. It kind of is and it kind of not, because they switch from that and then they go to the whole big secret thing. So, like, because his grades are slipping, he's doing Raisinette stuff. One of the Raisinets is acting weird towards him and keeps warning him of stuff. And then the Raisinette guy keeps looking at him with goo eyes and everything. And it's all like, okay, he must like him. But who the heck is it underneath there? Like, they won't show and everything. And you really can't tell. And so Omar decides, all right, I'm going to sneak around campus and spy on my friends and tell their secrets. This is what causes the somewhat burned book journal of his sketchbook and everything. And he does that crap, betraying his friends just so he can be in a stupid cult and everything. But when he gets back to his room, at some point, somebody steals his sketchbook. He blames his boyfriend. And it causes them to have a fight, but it turns out he did steal it. And so when Rupert tried to help him, be all like, I bet your boyfriend stole it, Omar does not want to believe it. So this is what causes Rupert to do what he does, find the book, find about like, Florence and Joachim and everything. And then does the whole Mean Girls thing of exposing what's in the book and everything. After this, everybody at school is hating on Omar, like giving him dirty looks, and won't let them. He has to sit by himself at lunch. But the question is, why is the whole school pissed at him when only his friends should be pissed at him? That's not really explained very well. And plus, the people at school found this hilarious. Maybe it's because they think, oh, we can't trust this guy or something like that. But you don't hear nobody say that. Well, in typical season 2 fashion, His friends forgive him within like the next episode. It's like nothing ever happened. It's like, how can they forgive him? And this thing caused so much explosion and everything between their personal lives, but they forgive him and everything. Then, oddly enough, he breaks up with his boyfriend, like I told you before. And it's because he's pissed because the dude stole his book. But he only stole it because the whole Raisinets thing is ruining Omar's life and his schoolwork and stuff. Then, all of a sudden, he recognizes the person, one of the Raisinets, who's been helping him out. And he reveals himself to Omar, and it's like, who the heck is this character? He's never been shown on the show before. And why does he like Omar all of a sudden? I know they have 6 episodes, but trust me, they did so much in season 1. It's bizarre how they're not explaining that much in season 2. The trio. The trio is Femi's best friend group. And one of their names is Cheddar. That's all I know. Cheddar. Now, these guys are pretty hilarious. They're dorky, but the problem is they are jerks. And this is the group that Femi left his friends for in season 1. And the thing about the trio is that you don't really truly 100% know their intentions. Do they truly care about Femi, or do they look down on him? It's never been truly explained, and it was never explained in season 1 because we don't see much of them. They kind of did their stuff off screen and just ran around getting drunk. This season is debatable, and it's just kind of like, I don't know how to judge them, you know what I'm saying? Because Femi found out that they hung out during the break, and they did not invite him. And he felt really bad about that. He's all like, how come my new friends don't want to hang out with me? And they all got matching pierced earrings and stuff. Well, they told him that, you know, you're poor and you couldn't afford to go where we wanted to go, like in another country and stuff. And so that makes Femi looks at them kind of like, oh, they don't like me because I'm poor. But then after that, one of them says, hey, look, man, we told you all you had to do was come up with the money for the plane ticket, and we would have paid for everything else, your hotel, your food expenses, going to like clubs or whatever. And so then it's kind of like, oh, so they was willing to pay for him, just not the ticket and stuff, because they couldn't pay for everything. So then it makes it seem like they're friends. But then one of them says after that, hey, look, man, you know, you're poor. If you can't afford to hang out with us, we'll just go to some place cheaper and everything. And they're all like, you know, we're cool with you being poor. How come you're not? And so it's kind of, then it seems like, well, they're actually willing to accommodate, you know, for his financial thing by going to a place that's a heck of a lot cheaper. Granted, cheaper places aren't as fun sometimes as more expensive, but they realize that and they're willing to do it. So it's kind of hard to figure out how they truly feel about him, because while they hang out and they do stuff and they pierced his ear for him in a very unsanitized kind of way, you gotta do more than just heat up the tip of like a safety pin needle for a couple of seconds. You gotta do a heck of a lot more than that. And so they pierced his ear so he can match with them. But then they make him do the most like jerkish, embarrassing things ever. Like in drama class, because he found out they was in drama, so he signed up for drama. And they made him embarrass himself in front of the teacher by acting like a very perverted, nasty person. And they did it for all because they just wanted to have a chuckle and everything. And it messed him up to where he permanently had to take that class, and you know the teacher had to get back at him by embarrassing him in front of the class. But then him and the teacher became on cooler terms. But then when the teacher wanted to invite him to her place so she can help him with his drama stuff, The guy's all like, nah, man, she wants to do you. So they give him a condom and they put in his mind that this is, her way of seducing you and everything, which of course that ended very terribly because she was not into him and it cost her her job. And so it's just hard to figure out how they truly feel like about him. Femi, I will say this season gave this dude some much needed character development because he didn't have none last season because he was pretty much absent for the entire show doing stuff off screen. So I'm glad they gave him an actual storyline this season. And they kind of tweaked his storyline a little bit. Turns out he's not poor at all. His dad is pretty loaded and has a job overseas and everything. And so when Carol finds out, she wants to know, why are you on a full scholarship when your dad can afford to send you here? And so, like I said before, he does things with the trio. Sorry about that, but he doesn't really hang out with them this much this season. He actually started hanging back out with his black friends again, which they just accepted him with open arms. Because it's just kind of like, because if you've seen the first season, he didn't want nothing to do with them, and he wanted to hang out with the trio. Then the trio started acting rude towards him, and then he started hanging out with the black friends again, only for the... So then, like I said, he started hanging out with his black friends, but then the trio wanted to hang out with him again, and he ditched his black friends again. And the thing about him is he wants to assimilate into, and be accepted into, white society. So he feels the best way to make white people like him is to hang out with them and do everything they do. But the people he hangs out with, all they want to do is get drunk, run around the school, and act like a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off and everything. And so but his group of friends, original ones, accepted him back this season because everybody's forgiving, except for Jude and Beatrix and stuff. Now, I already explained what happened between him, Jude, and the drama stuff. So I'll talk about his uncle. So yeah, he comes from money and everything. And so it doesn't explain why he didn't go on that trip. Now, it could be maybe his dad's overbearing. We don't know because we never see his father. His father's out of town. But we get to see his uncle. And what I don't understand is, why did the actor play his uncle and not his father? It would make more sense because of what the storyline involved with them. See, when his uncle saw his play and everything, his monologue, his uncle's all like, you ain't that good, you ain't no Denzel Washington and everything, and you need to do something other than this drama stuff. Well, because his grades, before his grades was slipping, it really hurt Femi to get told this, because now all of a sudden he likes drama, you know what I'm saying? And so Carol decides to ask the uncle for a bride, and the uncle got so offended, I've seen this before, we ain't doing this crap. Your dad did not send you to school just for you to fail in your classes, take drama, and have this woman try to bribe us and everything. I'm sending you to your father and everything. And so he literally pulls him out of school and about to put him on a plane. And he's really upset. He don't get to say goodbye to his friends. He really wants to do drama. So the most hilarious thing happens where they're on the road and they're a stop, and he hops out the car and just takes off running. And his uncle's chasing him on foot, grabs him. He slips out of his jacket and takes off running into a swamp type area. So then him and his uncle have a heart-to-heart conversation, talking about I would do better in school if I could actually pick a major in classes I want to do instead of what my dad wants me to do. And so once again, why is this conversation with his uncle and not that of his father? It would be more impactful if it came from the father. I don't really see why the uncle really cares that much. I mean, but whatever. So the uncle gonna talk to the father, let him stay, and now apparently off screen, he's doing better in classes because he now get to pick different classes. never really see them in class that much this season. Devani and Mabel. This whole situation is kind of odd because it's kind of like okay, so Devani is the brand new character and she's American. I don't know if the actress is American or British or not. I can't find no information on her, not even like an IMDb, because there's two actresses with her name and everything, and I'm not sure who's who, and I can't find nothing on the actual Borders IMDb page, because some of the people who's on this show aren't even on that page. But anyway, and so like she's pretty much Leah, but just in an American kind of way. So Aaliyah automatically gravitates towards her because she's the new black girl in school and she's happy and excited. And but then it turns out she starts hanging out with Mabel more because you know Mabel's Mabel, and Mabel always wants to fit into other races and stuff, and had them accept her and like you know show that she's on their side and stuff like that. Turns out Devane is a lesbian, and remember Mabel is a secret lesbian from last season. I think she had a crush on that of Leah and stuff. So, like, because of this, Mabel at first did not like Devane, but then within a couple of seconds, she started liking her because she saw how, like, you know, much of an advocate she was for injustice and stuff like that, and civil rights, just like Leah. So, you know, her and Devane start like dating and stuff. When Leah sees this, she kind of looks at them kind of weird, kind of like she didn't realize Mabel was like a lesbian. But there's no discussion about that whatsoever. Then all of a sudden, like Leah's personality completely changes towards Devane. And so it turns out Devane can do everything better than Leah. And so Leah was supposed to give a speech, but then she lost her notebook. And then so Devane gave one. And, you know, it pisses off Leah. But it's the point where Abby's all like, I bet she stole it. Here's a skeleton key. Let's go find it in her room. They can't find it. They get scared. They run out. And Leah still has the laptop of Devane. And so she has to give it back, but she can't because she don't know a good time to give it. So then she just buries it in the ground. Now, the whole laptop stealing thing is another subplot from last season. So they're just recycling plots now and stuff. But anyways, when Devane realizes she can't find her laptop, she freaks out. Then she finds out because of the journal sketchbook that it was Leah and everything. It devastates her so much that she decides she's gonna quit school and move back to America. Okay. So that made her just want to quit school and go back to another country? That don't make no sense. See, the reason why Leah stole it is because she saw a girl with Devane in like pictures and then face chat and stuff because Devane has a girlfriend back home. And so she's cheating on Mabel. But Mabel knows about this and does not care. Okay. And so like she's literally about to go home until Leah asks her like to stay and just go to like the dance with like Mabel, and Mabel does. Now Mabel, when she found out that the Leah stole the laptop because you know Leah told her, she tells her, look man, you need to do the right thing and confess and all this and that, and I'm disappointed in you. I don't hate you, but I'm disappointed in you. Here's my thing, right? Now Mabel, okay, this whole Devane storyline, I can do without. They should have just gave everything that Devontae did and give it to Mabel. Mabel's already established character. We know that Mabel's one of those type of people who doesn't like to offend other cultures, other races, and she's just pretty much one of those like, what you say? Like that's insensitive and that person's being rude or racist to you. Oh, we gotta protest and everything. Like she's one of those types. Like she hops on to whatever protest somebody's doing and stuff. Or whatever like social justice warrior thing she can think of. And and that's kind of like, and Devane, she's all about advocating as well. Her and Leah trashed the head mistress car and everything. And so, since that's already part of Mabel's identity, why not just give that to Mabel? Mabel also is a lesbian. She also crushes on Leah. What if it turns out that Mabel is way better at advocating and protesting than that of Leah and makes her jealous? That's technically what Devane did and everything. So why not just give her that storyline instead of just having Devane barely appear and do anything and barely have Mabel do anything. Plus, she's American. They could really capitalize on that, on the difference between British people and American people, African American. And I think Leah actress might be Nigerian, British or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. But they can be like, oh, even though we're both black, we're different types of black and we act different and we like different things and we have different we have different opinions on how to be black and everything. Do I need to write this show for them? So Leah, I'm starting to realize something about Leah. Leah seems to be a little bit stuck back in season 1, but then everything that made her interesting in season 1 is watered down in this season. She's still an advocate, she still protests. She still protests against whoever is the head master mistress type person. Recycling another storyline from last season, but it only lasts for a couple of minutes in the first episode when she trashes the head mistress car along with Mabel, which by the way, Femi ratted her out in the last episode, which I don't understand why he did that, because it's just going to make her get in trouble next season. And so like she's upset because two of them gonna get kicked out, and like whatchamacallem, the headmistress dropped some classes or something like that, and it pissed Leah off. And so Leah doesn't think when she protests and advocates, she just jumps right in and wants to make a big splash without thinking of the repercussions afterwards and everything. But we never see her get punished because nobody finds out she does it until the last episode, the last couple of minutes. Now, the whole her and Devane thing, she told her, like, this is cool. There's another black student here. I get to hang out with you and everything. And it's kind of like, well, what about her roommate who's half black, who she likes hanging out with? Well, she can't hang out with her now because her roommate's pissed at her, but her roommate's going to forgive her within a couple of minutes. And her roommate helped her steal Devane's, like, laptop. And now what about Mabel and everything? Yeah, Mabel's not black, but that's her friend and everything, and they do everything together. And it's just kind of like she's willing to, I get the fact she wants to hang out with somebody who's like her, another black girl who she can relate to. That's totally cool and everything. But don't abandon your friends who you made just for that reason. So I assume this was going to be a big storyline between the whole Mabel, Devane and Leah thing, and it kind of wasn't in the way I thought it was going to be. It just turns out Leah is just jealous of Devane because Devane does everything better than her. She's not jealous that she stole Mabel from her because Mabel just hangs out with her and not Leah now. And we don't get to see her advocate no more because apparently what's the name does it better but never does it on screen no more. And so it's just kind of like they don't know what to do with Leah this season. Then the guy she liked last season, who she was kissing and threw up on and everything, he just basically makes a cameo this season twice. I don't know what the heck they were talking about when they was outside sitting down, but then he goes to try to talk to her before the dance, and then Hakeem's roommate asked her out and everything for him to understand and back off, and it's just kind of like that's it. All that stuff they went through last season, which I can't even remember what they went through last season. I don't know why they broke up. I forgot. It's like you can't like do much with that. Maybe the actor was unavailable, probably. Like I don't know. But other than that, like they have her bury what's her name's laptop. And that's like the dumbest thing ever because Leah doesn't seem like a dumb person. She's very smart and she's very intuitive. And it's just kind of like when she panicked and couldn't get back into the room, like, she decided, okay, first she was going to throw it in the recycle bin, but then somebody was walking by her, and why are you going to throw it there? She should have just placed it by the door and just took off and everything, because the girl had her door halfway open, and she couldn't see her, so she could have just put it in the hall next to the door and just took off, or bang on the door and take off running and stuff. But she decides to go outside and bury it in the dirt. Why would you do that? It's like she didn't have a brain. So then they had to remind us that, hey, she is smart. So they put her in like this algebra stuff. But when they have her do the algebra stuff, it literally reminds me of what happened in Mean Girls, but just a whole lot crazier and funnier and stuff. And she's so rude to Yakeem's roommate to like hit him in the balls and everything just because he was taking too long with the answer, and just whatever. Like I don't mind the whole math thing, but like it literally just felt like Mean Girls. Like it literally just felt like copy and paste of Mean Girls, because then after that happened, they go to like a dance type thing, a formal, and it's just like Mean Girls and everything. And then, of course, she hooks up with like his roommate. And it's just like, when did these two ever be like a thing? Or when did they ever like each other? They barely talk to each other this entire season, only to do the math stuff and the math stuff only. I don't get it. So the main guy himself, Hakeem. I've called this dude like 3 different things. Yakeem, Jakeem, and Hakeem. I honestly don't know which it is. It starts with a J, but I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce that. But anyways, they actually did something really interesting with his story this season. So I was wondering what direction it was gonna go in, especially from last season. So right off from the bat, they show that he's having family problems and stuff. Like, with him being away at that school, apparently his grandmother can't make ends meet, and he also helped take care of his little brother. Now his mother comes back in the picture. Apparently his mother just walked off when he was like a little bit younger and never came back. And he's had resentment towards her ever since. But then all of a sudden she comes back and she wants to be in his life and the brother's life. And she seems like a very nice woman. I was wondering where this storyline was gonna go, because is she like a bad person? Was she on drugs in the past? Was she a criminal in the past? No, she literally just walked off and everything. And when she comes back, she is as sweet as sugar, but he does not care. And I get it. She walked off from him and never came back. Many of us have had parents like that. I got a parent like that. I will not talk to that parent and everything. And it's like, but then the rest of the season also deals with his little brother. Throughout the entire season, you constantly see him on his cell phone, checking to see where his brother is, talking to his brother. His grandma's in a really bad shape. The power got turned off. There's not much food in the house and everything. And so you're constantly seeing him text and call and this and that. And it's affecting his schoolwork. He gets a job and everything to help ends meet. But we only see him at that job in one episode and for like a couple of minutes and stuff. And, he found out that Beatrix works there and everything. And so him and Beatrix are now done, like I said before, because all he wants to do is bang her and not actually get to know her. But apparently he knows a lot about her. It's just he never tells her that, and he never wants to do anything but like bang her and stuff. So he sets his eyes on Florence because Florence started to flirt with him at the last episode of season 1. Now, a lot of fans don't like this love triangle. I don't mind it because I don't mind love triangles at all. But a lot of fans don't like it because Hakeem's black and he's going after 2 white girls. And the only people who really have a problem with this are black women. And I've told you this before, ever since like in the 90s. Black women will always have a problem with white women, and they hate it when a black guy is with a white woman. Like, it does not matter what decade it is, it will always be that way. I remember back in the Jonathan Majors thing and that whole trial and stuff was going on, I was on Twitter and I was reading some comments, and a black woman's all like, see, this is why I tell my son, don't you mess with no white girl because they will screw you over and everything. And I'm just kind of like, Lord, not every white girl is like that. You know, yeah, sadly, Sammy Davis Jr., sadly, that happened to him. You know what I'm saying? But that's not with everybody, you know. So most people, and it's the same thing with this one HBO Max show that just got canceled called The Sex Lives of College Girls. They didn't like it when Kanan, who was dating Whitney, who was black, and they broke up because Whitney was being crazy in the head. And then like he got with like her roommate, but her roommate happened to be actually his closest friend. So they started doing something, and people's all like, oh, we don't like this. He dumped on the black girl for the white girl. And it's like, no, are you not watching the same show? The black girl dumped him and everything. And so, yeah, so he's now doing this whole thing with Florence, and they're flirting. And then later on in the season, they start hooking up every morning and stuff, while she may or may not still be with Rupert. And remember, it was Beatrix that broke up with him. So he's free to do whatever he wants. But the problem is, Beatrix and Florence are best friends and they are roommates. You don't mess with somebody's best friend. You just don't do that. And he just didn't care. And so he's been flirting a little bit, confessing how he feels to Beatrix at Florence's birthday. While being drunk. And Florence had no idea because she thought he was 100% done. And so when the book gets out and Troy finds out, of course, Troy's not happy, not Troy, but Rupert's not happy. And like Florence is kind of like, you know, blaming Jakeem for all of this and everything, and talking about, what are you doing here? We shouldn't be seen talking together and blah, blah, blah. And so and it's like, dude, did the writers not remember that it was Florence who started flirting with Jakeem back in season 1 when he was still dating Beatrix and everything? And so for her to act like, oh, it's kind of like putting the blame all on him is completely messed up. Now, besides the whole love triangle thing and the Caleb thing, I assumed the whole Caleb thing was going to cause Jakeem to either quit school or like, you know, do bad in classes, which he is doing bad in classes, but all of them are, you know what I'm saying? But then, you know, Caleb goes missing. It turns out he's just with his mom all of a sudden. The whole thing with Caleb, I thought was going to go in a different direction. We know they're struggling. We see him walking the streets. We see him talk to older people and stuff. And you think, what is he going to do? Well, they come from like a poor neighborhood. Is he going to get wrapped up in some of the people Jakeem used to know and get into trouble? No, he's just hanging with his mom. So it's a big, long talk left and right between the mom and Jakeem. And one problem I have with this is nobody's raising their voice. It's the same thing with Femi and like Jude. they're so calm, but Jude showed a little bit of emotion, a little bit of anger, but not much. Nobody is really shouting at nobody this season. Everybody's just keeping like a calm voice when they're angry at people and stuff. And I don't get it. In Ackley Bridge, they would be shouting from the top of their lungs and everything. And I want to see that emotion, especially when it's about something this serious. You know what I'm saying? But he later forgives his mom on a trial basis type thing, you know? Now, while all this is going on, they had to remind us Jakeem is actually really smart. He's good with electronics and building machines and stuff. And apparently he's trying to get into MIT. But he even hacks that of Carol's computer and gets her password. And it's just kind of like, I didn't know he could do that. Like when you see him do his hacker thing, it's just like, wait, since when is he a hacker? I know he's good with like building robots, but since when is he a hacker? But anyway, he doesn't get into MIT. And so, but he does be one of the two students who gets kicked out of school. It's him and it's Omar. Carol does not like Jakeem because he was the head boy. He later gave it up and he was supposed to do some kind of banquet thing and show off all the people, but you know, Gus told him don't do that and just go be a kid. Then of course there's the whole Rupert thing and Florence thing, and Carol does not like that. She doesn't like Omar because Omar still talks and hangs out with her son, and he knows that she bribes people or takes bribes and everything. And so because of that, she just wants him gone now that she knows where the Raisinets reside and everything. But of course, Femi is the one who gets them reinstated and everything when he blackmails her. And so it's kind of like, I don't know, the role of Jakeem is kind of regressing a little bit because, you know, he's kind of like the quote unquote leader of like the group unofficially and everything, but it's like, while he's very noble and I like the storyline between the family, I just wanted more from that. The whole thing with him and Beatrix, I don't know what the heck is going on with that. And it's just kind of like, but he does get a nice offer from his teacher about since he can't get into MIT, there's another school in America, but it's not for summer school, it's for like permanently and everything. So on a cliffhanger, he has to debate if he's going to stay at this school or go to America. Now, I know I've been doing a lot of complaining, but this is still a good season. There's some interesting storylines and it's really funny. But the problem is, it is not as good as season one. They don't tackle the black social issues like they did in season one. And I don't know why they abandoned that. And you can clearly tell they abandoned it in just the first couple of minutes of like the show after Leah does what she does with the car and stuff. And I don't know if it was like just the writers wanting to get away from that. I don't know if it's the network. I don't know what's going on in Britain. Maybe they rolling back on DEI too. And it's just like, it's just odd. Like I said before, I can go either way. I can either have this be like a show about black issues, or I can just have this be a regular teen drama where everybody gets their due and everything. But the problem is they established this show being one way in the beginning, and now some of the fan base is just kind of like agreeing with me. It's not as good as season one and everything. It's just completely different. It's like they lost their identity, and the question is, why? Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.